Defund the police. That's the slogan on some protest signs, and you'll hear plenty of scaremongering about how police departments would go away overnight. There'd be nobody to call for help in a crisis. When many activists call for defunding the police, what they're talking about is reallocating some of the law enforcement funding and some of their responsibility. It's all about the details here. Our Steve Steger takes a closer look.
I get concerned when I see kind of the paramilitary sort of thing.
Denver District 11 Councilwoman Stacie Gilmore has joined with all members of City Council asking that the actions of police during protests last week get an outside look. But those images, coupled with a call from protesters to defund police, also have her thinking about the police department's budget.
We need to see significant changes in the Denver Police Department's budget and how we're going to reinvest back into our neighborhood.
Gilmore and several other members of City Council want to see some reallocation of the $250 million Denver invests in its police department each year, giving some of it instead to social services.
What they're not talking about is we won't have any detectives and murders will go unsolved.
CU criminal law professor Aya Gruber says it's a conversation going on across the country about taking some things off of officers' plates, like investing in mental health professionals to deal with someone in crisis.
If all you have is that brute force and you tell the police, this is how you manage dysfunction in society, you give them that hammer, everything and everybody is going to look like a nail.
You can't have a caseworker from social services respond to a person with a gun, right?
MSU Denver criminal justice professor and former officer Kevin Smith says that's unrealistic.
I think police officers, by their trade, by their profession, have to be kind of the triage unit to respond to those needs.
He says any talk about reallocating funds to reform police should be a discussion about training and recruiting. All agree something has to change.
After what has been the biggest and most sustained and most national protest in U.S. history, I think if we don't see major changes, people are going to be very disappointed and they're going to really lose faith in their governing officials.
So I mentioned that Denver City Council wants an outside investigation into the protests that and the action of Denver police officers during those protests. They would like the city's independent monitor to take a look at that. And Kyle, every member of the City Council signed on to a letter asking the independent monitor to do that today.
Steve, when I hear the suggestions from some advocates that the idea of mental health responses should be taken away from police, it sounds like what I've heard a lot from law enforcement over the years, that they don't want to be in that position and they know that they're not the best trained to deal with a lot of those situations.
Not to mention another thing you hear in this conversation as well is dealing with the homeless population, that there could be social service providers who might better understand how to interact with folks who are going through a situation like that and better work with them than police officers who have to get a whole lot of different training on how to deal with different people. That's the argument that the folks who are saying maybe we ought to take some of these resources and put them somewhere else. That's their argument.
Well, and as former Sheriff Cook is demonstrating at the legislature, people are open to ideas when they have law enforcement minds at the table as well. Steve, thank you for that.